Greetings, family. This is Cassandra Floyd, also known as the Rogue Black Girl, also known as Iyapo Ngina. It's been a little over a week since the last time I read. Last week was kind of crazy, a lot going on, and so I took a little time to get my break. A lot of stuff happening in the world, and we have to adjust accordingly. So anyway, I am back doing what I do. I am going to be a lot more disciplined from now on about establishing a set date and times to read. Up until now, it's just been kind of whenever I get the mood. But actually, I just saw that let me plug my computer up really quick. Anyway, so yeah, here I am back at you again with the continued reading, The Great Cosmic Mother, Rediscovering the Religion of the Earth by Monica Zhu and Barbara Moore. So today we are shifting to a new section of the book. So for the last couple of months, we've been in section 3 of the book. Today we shift to section 4. And section 4 is entitled Patriarchal Culture and Religion. And the first chapter of this section is God as Father. Chapter 38. If God is the mother of the universe, then the creation is of the same substance as her. As her. It is of her as the child is of its mother's substance, and this means that the whole creation is divine and divinely related. We should have imagined life as created in the birth pain of God, the mother. Then we would understand that we would know that our life's rhythm beats from her great heart, torn with agony of love and birth. Then we should understand why we, her children, have inherited pain, and we feel that death meant a reunion with her, a passing back into her substance, the blood of her blood again, piece of her piece. Human females and males are not equal genetic parents. The female X chromosome is 3 to 4 times longer than the male Y chromosome. It carries the overwhelming predominance of critical genetic information unrelated to sex needed to create a human being. Further, while only half the population has a Y chromosome, all of us, female and male, contain an X chromosome. It is our primary genetic bond as a species. The female egg, even before it mates with a sperm, generates an electrical field that becomes the shaping energy of the embryo as it develops into an independent being. The mother field is both biological environment and the shaper of form within the environment. These biological facts are also experienced as spiritual facts. But when the cult of the male god was established, there must have been difficulty in explaining how he could be the giver of life to all creation, since the man, unlike the woman, cannot produce from his body either the child or the food for the child. The whole attitude of humans towards the god had to be violently altered. Had to be violently altered. There could not be the same vital biological and magical link, the I thou, between the child and the father, as there is between the child and its mother. Two beings evolving in and from the same body, the same rhythms, the same dreams. From the religious point of view, this means the loss between the human and the divine of direct, continuous, physical, emotional, spiritual relationship. Oneness is dualized. The self is isolated within, and the rest of the universe, including God, is displaced and objectified without. The evolutionary protoplasmic connection between the experienced self and the all is broken, and the relation becomes I, the other, or worse, I, it. The Father is not of the same all-containing, all-infusing, shaping, and nourishing substance. And so the relation between humans and the Father God becomes abstract and alienated, distant and moralistic. The abstract God is inorganic, equally inorganic, relative to preceding 300,000 to 500,000 years of communal Stone Age life, was the rigid class system of royal masters served by slave labor that quickly coalesced around the ruling patriarchal elite. The few can rule the many only with the help of only with the help of punitive religious ideologies, by means of which the unjust advantage of the few and the raw exploitation of the many are somehow justified by God, by a class theology. And so this new male God must be enforced on the people by the punitive, guilt-projecting ideologies of a privileged priesthood in their writings and doctrines flooding the Bronze Age. Creation now comes to be seen as evil. The Creator is above and apart from his creation, and while he is perfect, the world is flawed. And so the idea of original sin can be conceived for the first time to rationalize unnatural new relation between the human soul and the aloof God. This lays the basis for all further alienated relationships between people and God, between people and people, between people and the natural world, between rulers and ruled. For now, the primary relation is not that we share the same divine substance, but that we share the same material corruption. And the entire priesthood exists to, quote, redeem us from the sin of being born from a mother, and to rationalize class disparity by preaching that the new class system is God's design, his method for creating civilized order out of the corruption and chaos of human flesh. For an unjust system to work for any prolonged period of time, it is necessary that the masses of people believe they deserve injustice. This is why the Father's way will ascribe his emanations or manifested attributes. He is perfect and good and disembodied spirit, the Logos. He is seen as purely spiritual generation, totally freed from matter, because the priest must insist he is free from the great mother and having no participation in material processes. It then becomes difficult to explain the existence of death, illness, pain, and decay, since they have nothing to do with God. Rather, it becomes too easy to explain them. Everything is blamed on the corrupt mother and her human children and her heathenish lover, the devil. It now becomes possible for the Hindu mystic to confuse the goddess as time, Maya, with evil on the one hand and with the whole natural universe on the other. Let's see. So making all creation the product of evil, while God remains uninvolved. Under ontological dualism, the mind becomes more and more confused by paradox, and to work their way out of their confusion, patriarchal theologians seek abstract escape from the natural world, defined as a seductive trap. The world of Maya is called mere illusion, a veil hiding true being. And so the Hindu, the Buddhist, and the Christian seek liberation from nature in search of a state of consciousness bereft of all sense experience, nirvana or angelic heaven. It was to correct this immaterial floatiness, in fact, that Zen developed out of ancient Taoism to re-insist on the reality of the real. Alan Watts in Nature, Man, and Woman describes the ancient female way of fusing spirit and matter in non-coercive union, a way of flowing along with events while at the same time cooperatively molding them. It is the way of the dance and of the unfolding of plant, animal, and material forms, the desire of energy to form itself according to its own rhythms. At some historic point, in an aggressive act of self-definition, the male mind interpreted this energy, this organic will, as other, and mentally separated himself from it. It became Maya, illusion, evil, mere matter, inferior object. Denying and fighting it, man tries to artificially and ideologically impose his own contrary ego will in the process. And in the process, he destroys nature, and thereby, for he too is nature himself. For he too is nature himself. The text says, there is a thing confusedly formed, born before heaven and earth, silent and void. It stands alone and does not change, goes round and does not weary. It is capable of being the mother of the world. I know not its name, so I style it the way. I give it the makeshift name of the great. Being great, it is further described as the receding. Receding it is described as far away. Being far away, it is turning back. Tao is that from which one cannot for a single minute depart. That from which one may not depart is not that from which one may depart is not Tao. As the Father God is seen as entirely good, light, static, like the sun at noon, the Hebrews and Christians had to invent the devil. In the Bible, the Old Testament Hebrews refer to Satan, which means enemy. Any enemy of the Hebrews or the Hebrew God was satanic. Early Christians, who were mostly Hebrew and inheritors of the Hebrew tradition, became the source of all, an inheritors of the Hebrew tradition, expanded on this quasi-political definition of embodied evil until the devil became the source of all things called evil, of decay, darkness, illness, pain, and death. The Jewish Essenes, who were evolving Christian concepts 100 years at least before the reputed birth of Christ, also took in many Persian Zoroastrian concepts of good versus evil as the cosmic battle between light and dark, between the children of light and the children of darkness. And so an extremely dualistic good light versus evil dark ontology was incorporated as the rational framework of Christianity, with an aloof cloud-dwelling God representing all that is good and light, while a very busy, world-hugging devil represents all the bad, dark stuff. Once Christians had invented this monster, they could become totally obsessed with this invention of theirs. They would become totally obsessed with this invention of theirs. Fanatically obsessed, since the devil is the curse of those who have abandoned the goddess. The fanaticism is a mental curse. So now the devil is projected on half the world as the other by the crazy half that considers itself good. Islam inherited the same biblical tendency toward dualism and devil projection as has historically elaborated on it also. Under these religious systems, half of life is seen as the enemy of life and is no longer experienced as an inherent and organic part of the life process. In patriarchy, the Mata character of the symbol materia is devalued. Matter is no longer revered as the foundation substance of the world and of the world of growth and experience. Matter is no longer intuited as an evolutionary phenomenon, as a form of spirit energy, as the potentia of consciousness. Matter is now the stupid, dark, female, despised as something of inferior value in contrast with the male ideal. In Muslim and Christian doctrine, matter has become inert, wholly negative, demonized, and hostile to spirit. It is the female world as opposed to the divine spirit heaven that males are born to inherit. Industrial revolution, however, and the rise of science as the dominant patriarchal religion or mind technology, an ironic crossover occurred. Without canceling out the earlier negative associations, materialism becomes the dominant and manly ideology, while spirituality is consigned to an increasingly ethereal, irrelevant, peripheral sphere of being, the afterworld or filters. But still, matter is viewed as dumb and inert. Materialism does not glory in matter, but in the male's ability to manipulate it. The new materialism is machine worship and product worship, not the vital and ecstatic celebration of spirit matter that characterized the goddess religion. The current thrust of materialism is to escape the Earth's orbit, to flee the knowledge and the problems of our messy, bloody, hungry, and waste-producing bodily origins, to dwell on wholly sterile and man-made stations, stasis, static, in space, where the astronaut, the modern priest of technophallic religion, child, realizes his ancient dream to utterly escape the earthly processes the rest of us remain wallowing in. Woo! Let me mark my little stuff right here. I think that's going to be the quote for the day, baby. Where the astronaut child becomes the modern priest of technophallic religion. God. That's vicious. In the patriarchal heaven of the Hebrew Kabbalah, the world tree lost its paradox. It began to be pictured as one-sided, with the roots above in the sky only. The earth side of the processes of life and illumination is utterly negated. Not there. Utterly negated. Not there. Interestingly enough, according to Marcia Eliade in his study of shamanism, modern-day male shamans worldwide rarely undertake the journey to the underworld common in old times. They have come to fear and avoid the realms of the living dead, baby. Oh my God. Of magic darkness and necessary worms as the dominion of the dark mother. They eschew it. Instead, they concentrate on the journey to the sky, which involves considerable prestige for the shaman, being a trip into the home of the celestial patriarch, the big, clean father in the sky. Anti-earth, anti-natural symbolism is distinctly related to religious dualism. From it arises a purely abstract worldview, as in mathematics, in which the man-made symbols are not comprehended as part of a larger reality. They are comprehended as the reality. Dualism is a spectator sport. No one wholly involved in an ongoing life processes can conceive of it in dualistic terms or objectify the experience. Dualism first arose among men who were functional spectators of life created by women. These were the male priesthoods, men who did not give birth to creatures, who would experience both ecstasy and pain, and who would die. Men, those whole self-appointed tasks was uninvolved organization and manipulation of life into abstract and systematic terms for the sake of secular control and power. Male priesthoods are characterized by their dogmatic attempts to control a process they do not themselves, as spectators, participate in. Such mechanical, anti-natural, remote control concepts of life have choked the springs of the living waters. The patriarchal, Kabbalistic world tree with roots exclusively in the sky is wholly cerebral and unreal. To erase the earth side of the spiritual equation is to de-energize the equation. To deny the earth roots of the world tree is to deny the serpent roots of the spine, baby. And indeed, the biblical Hebrews set themselves against the serpent. In so doing, they were deliberately opposing the Kundalini powers of the spine, the sex chakra, and the ancient brainstem. And so the Father God becomes both anti-sexual and anti-evolutionary. This is our grotesque situation today. An anti-sexual God is now worshipped as the creator of all life. And whenever you find a puritanical God, you find also a pornographic God, for the human mind will strive for balance. And the anti-evolutionary God is now worship of developmental machine programs and technologies. The immortality promised by the moon goddess was not a state of perfection or stasis in eternal light. She offers an ever renewed life like the moon's own, in which diminishing and dying are as essential to spiritual growth as birth and becoming. Her redemption is not from sin and matter, but from mental trips that block the self from its own source. It is the union of the opposites within the psyche which brings release from the final power of death, which allows consciousness to pulsate from one dimension to another in the cosmic field. This is the only redeeming experience, to be lived by an inner presence, the creator behind the ego. The Olympian male, chapter 39. If Father God religions are reactionary and anti-evolutionary, the reason is simple. They are built in reaction to the original goddess religion, which dominated human thought and feeling for at least 300,000 years. By contrast, God has been conceptualized as a complete male for only about 3,000 to 4,000 years. For this reason, patriarchal religions must begin by denying evolution. For if that long stretch of human growth time was acknowledged, it would have to be credited as the evolutionary creative time of the Great Mother. To avoid this, father gods just somehow appear, as it were, by spontaneous generation, and human life just suddenly appears with them, fully formed, sprung arbitrarily from the forehead of the he god sometime around 2000 BC. The characteristic of an Olympian god, a patriarchal god, in contrast to the mystery god, the matriarchal god, is that the Olympian's form is rigidly fixed and always human. He has lost his animal forms and his magical ability to transmute energy shape to another. He has lost his alchemical properties. The Olympian is idealized, rationalized, aloof, deathless. Deathless. And so ultimately, he seems to geometrically, he seems too geometric to move us. All poets have had trouble making him interesting because he isn't. The Olympian does not evolve. He hypothesizes. Does not evolve. He hypothesizes to the blare of trumpets. This means he is not born from woman or earth or matter, but from his own absolute will. He represents a static perfection in human form, incapable of transformation or ecstatic change as a god. He is an intellectual concept, and so the energy exchange between all creatures and their magically shape-changing deity is lost. The mystical evolutionary power connection is broken. God becomes mere idea and his world mere mechanism. In earlier Greek myth, the full sun was still Dionysian, though described as phallic fecundator of the receptive earth. The legend and the drama of the Greek Dionysus raised fatherhood over maternity, but still yearned ecstatically for the mother, as befit his Cretan origins. But in classical Greek mythology, Apollo, the Platonic intellectual ideal homosexual lover, was transformed into the static and immutable light, which is no longer cyclically rising and setting, coming into being and passing away. It exists absolutely, never changing. Apollo and Athena, redesigned as the motherless daughter of Zeus, together usher in the new law of paternity. Apollo declaring that the mother is no parent of that which is called her child. You know what? Actually, I'm going to stop there for today. I know it's only been about 26 minutes, but it's been a pretty long day and week, and I actually am just going to be obedient to Spirit. I'm going to stop the reading there for now, and I may come back on tonight, or more than likely tomorrow, to finish up more fantastic, magnanimous, The Great Cosmic Mother, Rediscovering the Religion of the Earth by Monica Zhu. Take care.